All right, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of the Peaking Podcast. We are excited to have Fernando Young. He is the CEO and co-founder of Beluga Labs. Awesome gentleman. Really excited to get to share his story. I think you'll get a ton of value from it. So, Fernando, thank you for coming on. Excited to have you. Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Brian. Well, great to meet you again. My name's Fernando. Uh, I co-founder of Beluga Labs. Beluga Labs is the operating system for the creator economy. So you can think of things from, the creator themselves to the business managers, agents, agencies, as well as the overall brands. The idea is this is the one centralized place where everything the creator economy will go to. We just did Y Combinator, the spring batch, so it just ended about a month ago. Now we're just full sprint building away.
Right on. Very cool. So tell us, maybe go back to the beginning. Where did you meet your co-founder? What does that story look like? How did tell us a little bit about your early career journey?
Yeah, for sure. So I met my co-founder freshman year at Harvard. We both were there, and we were in the same like freshman dorm building together. So just by chance,
Yeah.
yeah, when we met, we're both very entrepreneurial. So kind of like one became friends on just video games and like similar overlapping likes, but as well on this like ambition to create. I think was like a really core thing to both of us. And yeah, very quickly from there, we roomed together sophomore, junior, senior year. And all throughout college, we were kind of creating projects together.
Hmm.
Um, so I went on a trip to Japan sophomore year and got like really inspired by Japanese clothing. I know you and I were talking about that. And I took like a street tour with an influencer there actually. And
Yeah.
from there, that's where I was like, oh, we got to like create something around this. So we got back and we were basically building an app to take a picture of the clothes in your closet to create outfits for the week because we just hated having to like repeat
Love that.
outfits. So like silly ideas like that to senior year, we took a class called RAD, which is research and design with Paul Bettino, who's the head of engineering at Harvard. Basically, the idea behind that class is like a mini Y Combinator. 1 year only for seniors at Harvard. You have to apply to get in with an idea. So it's very similar to YC. And then once you get in, basically the entire class is just building a company. There's no like homework or exams. It's, you go around, you do like group office hours basically with the other people who are doing it, and you just make progress in your company. So me and Jack were doing that together with one of our other roommates. Basically, we were building like generative image output right before DALL-E was announced like in beta. So it was like we didn't even know about it. So we were like building about it. We're like, wow, like this is gonna blow up. And then DALL-E came out, and we're like, dang, OpenAI's got a lot more money and influence than we do. But yeah, so always building ideas together, which has just been really awesome. Happy to dig in kind of what I did after Harvard as well. If that's helpful right
Sure.
now.
Well, so what did you study and what did he study at Harvard?
Yeah, so I studied sociology, and then I was cross-enrolled at MIT Sloan, so taking business classes through there. More like entrepreneurial facing MBA classes, so like B2B sales, entrepreneurial sales, discipline entrepreneurship, things like that. More kind
Yeah.
of between the marketing and sales side of things. And then Jack studied computer science and statistics. So he did a joint degree. So it's really rare to see that. There was only 30 people in our year to do that. So you had to write a thesis, and he actually wrote a thesis on evaluating LLM output. So very like relevant to the current world and everything.
Yeah.
But like, back in 21, so like kind of when it was just really started to take a big boom, which is great.
Very cool. Very cool. And so, how do you think sociology shaped your journey into Beluga, but then even before then, getting into your first career?
Yeah, definitely. I think for me, I really viewed like my early career as, and this is like the expression I always use is like I'm like Batman and I have a tool belt, and when you graduate, the tool belt's empty. You got nothing in there. So my
Yeah.
idea was I had to fill in my tool belt with all the little gadgets I may need.
Yeah.
And I think that like sociology very much is in that way where you take a study of, groups that have nothing to do with each other and you understand how they were able to relate, where the common places are, And for me, I think human connection and overall business is all about understanding. And
Mhm.
people talk about it like, build something people want, right? Talk to your users. It's all about this like level of like knowing the unknown. And that's like
Yeah.
what really creates a successful startup. So for me, like I was fascinated by that idea of understanding. I
Mhm.
think that's why I decided to study sociology and very much like wanted to carry that over into my career. So after I graduated, the first thing I was looking at is like, where can I get the most exposure and like
Yeah.
have the most understanding with various groups. I didn't just want to be working with like one type of client and every conversation's the same, because then I'm not learning. I'm not like equipping my tool belt.
Yeah.
Uh, so that very much led me to like look at bigger companies. So
Yeah.
all throughout college, I interned at, well, at that point it was Facebook, but Meta. So I interned there and then went full time with them after college. So I was an account manager for them, working with like their big ads account. So clients such as American Airlines, NPR, so very large clients. But the really cool thing about that was I was able to work with all different types of companies, from women's high fashion to grocery to military contracting, to gaming, all across the board,
Yeah.
to really start understanding like, where do I have a passion for something like this as well, right? And that was like
Yeah.
really my goal, is like, where's a vertical that I resonate with on a personal level that I really want to understand, is the first thing. And then two, it's like, how do I equip myself to be able to talk to someone who's leading a nonprofit, to then talk to someone who's leading a startup, and then talk
Yeah.
to someone who's like an individual content creator, right? Like all very different types of people, very different types of conversations. So
Sure.
understanding like, how do I tailor myself to that, so that I can like really understand their problems and come at it at a genuine standpoint, not just like a transactional sales point.
Yeah, yeah. Now, when you were in that early stage, did you always have it in mind where, hey, I'm going to start my own company, I'm going to be an entrepreneur, and I want to gain these skill sets, or did that just naturally happen over the course of, hey, I'm just trying to get experience and I want to go work for a big company, and this looks like a great opportunity? Like, was that in mind, or?
Yeah. Yeah, Brian, it was all part of the plan.
Eh,
I always wanted to start a company, and like I very much game planned it from the beginning. My dad's an entrepreneur. He started his small
it was
business
okay,
right
cool.
after he graduated college. So he graduated from Clarkson, moved to Nantucket, where I grew up, and like took out a bank loan to start his business. So like way more higher risk than I had to go through. Thank God for YC,
Yeah,
right? He just like took out loans and was able to build out his business. And I think
yeah.
seeing that, really, it's like two inspirations, and like what drives me as an entrepreneur and why I wanted to do it is, the first thing is like this idea of pathfinding is so interesting to me. I
Mhm.
love space. I love the idea of exploration. And to me, that's what entrepreneurship is, right? You're going into like a heavy bush area, and you're carving a path for other companies to follow in your footsteps, for other users to follow in your footsteps. And without you, that path would not exist, right? So I think that's the first thing that really interests me, is pathfinding. I think the second thing is like being able to change lives of people who, if you didn't exist, if you didn't wake up tomorrow, it wouldn't be that way, right?
Yeah,
So my dad, I've been able to see that he's been able to create careers for people who've been working for his company for 30, 25 years now.
yeah,
For me, I very much want to do the same thing, where people are able to work at Beluga Labs for many, many years to come, and they're able to have their whole career there. That to me is a really big and important pillar of building a company.
mhm,
So yeah, it was all absolutely part of the plan. But I knew I wanted to have some of those tool belts before I jumped right into entrepreneurship. I did have a moment in college where I was trying to drop out and just start a company. I had a couple of my friends who did that. Basically, right around the pandemic, one of them did Y Combinator, and I very much was on that boat. But my parents wanted me to finish the degree, but also to
yeah,
get some of that experience to be able to carry that over into entrepreneurship. And I think that's been super helpful to me. The fact that I have done, high ticket sales, I have done high volume sales, I've done massive
yeah,
marketing campaigns. For me, it's more of, let's refine this into a different lens than let's learn how to do this for the first time.
yeah.
So it's been incredibly helpful as I go on through this journey.
What's some of the greatest advice your dad has given you, whether school, life, in general?
Yeah. Um, I think two main things. One, and this is one that I always talk about, where if you don't have time to do things right the first time, you definitely don't have time to do things right the second time. I think that's
Yeah,
absolutely true. And, especially like at Meta, that was the same way. And then, building, it's like, it's all about this fast and break things. But I think it's being intentionally fast. And if you're going to break things, baking in that error margin that, it may break, but that's okay.
yeah,
Rather than just rushing without a direction. So I think that's been a really big piece of advice. I think the second thing has been more around like people and the mission. I think my dad has been able to have his customers for a very long time. And that's something that we really want to do at Beluga Labs is the first set of customers. I'd rather have 15 customers who love us and will never churn than 100 customers who barely know my name. So
Yeah.
the first set of 15 customers, we talk with them nearly on a daily basis. We always watch their streams, always donate to their streams, anything we can do, host tournaments for them. For us, we really want to have that like friendship barrier broken and, really understanding those 15 users because even as we grow and we get to the points where we're having thousands of creators working with us, I still want those 15 to almost be like a mini board for me, a place where I can go and sound ideas and know that, they trust me and I trust them. And together, that's where we're able to make really good decisions where I'm not just this isolated pocket of a CEO.
Yeah. Yeah, really cool. Going on that concept of going really fast, but also being intentional, how do you balance going fast with releases and quality and making sure that your end users are happy with what you're building?
Yeah, for sure. I think we've been watching a show recently called For All Mankind, which is like about space.
Yeah,
And I love
love
space. And I
that
think
show.
that I very much am looking at it like I'm NASA, right?
Yeah,
And NASA's overall plan in the show, and then, right now as well as like, let's get to Mars. But that's a really big vision. That's not something that you can just build a rocket today and get to Mars. So you have to
yeah,
do these like mini trials in order to get there, knowing that you're making progress towards that big vision, right? Our big vision is the entire creator economy. Everyone touching it is using our operating system. That's a huge vision. That's a lot of modules, a ton of features you got to ship to a bunch of different people as well who all interact with it in a different way. So for us, we had to break it down through like stages and really succeed at each stage. The first stage that we landed on, and certainly like the hair on fire problem, is this idea around creator taxes, creator bookkeeping, where there's no specialized solution right now in the market. It's very difficult for them to navigate this space because they're not a typical 1099 worker, they're not a W-2 worker. So there's this like weird space that they live in. So for us, we said, all right, let's solve this problem and really get it right to the point where when we talk to all our users, we hear the same exact feedback, whether it's like neutral or positive, but it's the same feedback. Once we hear that, we know, okay, we've kind of conquered that problem. Let's move on to the next one. So
yeah.
really for us, our first thing is let's solve this feature really well before we just launch 10 features and then get lost in the noise, right? Because
Mhm.
the idea is each feature is probably going to bring on a different type of user. Maybe it's a fashion influencer, maybe it's a gaming influencer, but each feature will be more relevant to one creator versus the other. And what that's going to create is a totally diverse pool where it's going to be really hard to actually know what your users are going through. With taxes, it's kind of bringing on this like CEO minded creator who's like really trying to maximize every dollar. We love that, right? It's like think about like Mr. Beast, Kai Cenat, people who really care about like, I want to maximize the amount of money I'm making. Those are the people we're working with right now.
Mhm.
So our goal is to like really build with those. Once we kind of nail that and hear the same piece of advice, and that's actually something we heard from the founder Augusto. He was saying that I asked him, how did you move on from module to module? It started with payroll, they went on to a different thing after that. He said once I heard the same feedback from every user, that's when we launched the next thing. Kind of were in that similar boat. So, it may be a month, maybe 2 months, but it's really talking to your users every day and understanding once we hear the same feedback, they look at our portal and they say, actually, I can't give you any more pointers. Great. That's when we move on to the next feature.
Yeah. So prior to having those first 15 users, how did you validate the idea? How did you validate Beluga Labs? I think you mentioned you went through a pivot early in your early days. So maybe
Yeah.
start like what did that look like, and then how did you validate that move forward and that transition?
For sure. So we got into Y Combinator with a totally different idea. We were working on AI agent to agent orchestration. So basically, think about like if Beluga Labs is using Artisan and I don't know, let's say another AI agent, and basically having a way that those two agents can communicate with each other to have workflows that interact within each of their UIs, each of their platforms, which is a great idea, and I think someone will be doing that. Just a little too early in the space. That idea requires you to not be churning through products, not be testing out agents, but having entrenched solutions. We're not going to move on from
Right.
Artisan. We're just not quite there yet in the space. So
Yeah.
for that reason, we were not feeling great traction. And really, the validation came from the conversation. So the previous conversations with the other idea we were having, this is kind of like the first month of Y Combinator. So we're trying to do sales. We had already done our MVP and we were just going through the sales motion. And these conversations were quick, 30 minutes on the dot. And a lot of the times they were asking me for advice on sales or marketing. And this is like an agent company coming to me who's been around for like 2 years. So I kind of saw that writing and said, oh, well, if they're asking for advice, they're not going to be a great customer because they're clearly not, not striving in that way.
Yeah.
So, we kind of went back to the board and said, where's my background? Where's Jack's background? And where do we really overlap nicely? So my background in having worked with content creators at a company called Daredrop, which is basically like organic influencer marketing, which is a really positive experience for me, as well as Meta being able to do large scale campaigns and seeing the effect that had. And then Jack's experience of leading AI teams over at Bubble, the no code developer platform. We said together that kind of only makes sense that we build around content creators. So to
Yeah.
validate the idea, all we did was talk to as many creators as we could. No selling, nothing, no angle, no taxes. We didn't even know about taxes that this was an issue. So
Right.
what I would just do is I would just hop on to different Twitch streams, donate $1 and say, would love to chat with you. Got a great conversion rate because,
Yeah.
creators want to chat. And I think that's really where like the market was really validated to us as well,
Mhm.
where they all wanted to be on the phone, but they also all were talking to us for an hour, hour and a half, really long time, all, talking through Discord. So it's a very like genuine communication point. And yeah, the conversations were just much longer and they were telling us all their problems from personal life problems that we couldn't really fix, as well as to professional problems.
Yeah.
And, our goal too was to talk to lots of different types of creators. So we talked from Instagram influencers, think about like coastal beauty, fashion, to gaming, like XQZ type creators,
Yeah.
as well as to like more professional YouTube channels, really trying to talk to a wide breadth of creators to understand where there was an overlapping problem, not just an isolated vertical problem.
Yeah.
And we'd actually come in thinking we were going to be doing front ends, more of like results analytics for them. Like this
Sure.
thumbnail, did really well. And you could see Mr. Beast actually just tried to launch something like that. So definitely something that's top of mind. But for us, we wanted to stay away from that for a couple of reasons. One, that's the path that's been beaten already. A lot of people try to do the front end solution with creator economy, which some will succeed, but there's a lot of noise in that space. The back office stuff, right? It's like the dusty stuff in the corner no one wants to touch.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
where Jack and I like to live, right? Like the hairy problems, it's very complicated. But if you can solve it, it's incredibly meaningful and will actually change their time, the way they operate their business. So we actually were just like walking through the workflows and we said, hey, through one of our creators, we said, walk us through your schedule from Monday to Friday. What do you do? And it just so happened to be right before tax window. This is like in April. So she took us through her tax spreadsheet. And that's when we realized there's a big problem here. This is a large creator who has a CPA, has an agency, and is still doing a ton of work manually, who
Yeah.
is making a lot of money when she actually streams. So for us, that's where we noticed that was an issue for us to validate, or an issue for us to really solve around. Took that, started building around it, and sent it out. And we've had a 100% conversion rate on all the conversations we've had. So that's
Incredible.
really been validating the product, as well as just this is a solution that no one feels like, oh, taxes are super easy for me. I have it solved. Everyone's
Right.
got a different scenario. Everyone's got a different flavor of, I'm
Sure.
lost or I'm not. But overall, it's not a solved problem that's just a checkbox you can put away in the back. I think this is kind of the same for overall, like all types of people. Like I've gone through different types of tax scenarios, so you can just imagine it's so much worse when you have such a complicated tax deal.
Yeah. How large is the creator economy?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think there's been some reports out there around like full-time creators. And that's really what we're interested in is people who are
Right.
doing this full-time, which everyone has a different threshold for how much is full time. Some people are comfortable living on a $60,000 a year income. Some people need 100,000. So it really just depends on their
Sure.
scenario. For us, we've anchored in at the $60,000 mark. So of those, there's various reports that say around 12 million creators who are doing this full time. That's across all the platforms as well, all the different verticals, just conglomerate 12 million.
Yeah.
Um, so for us, that's really the market we're going after. But the more we've been developing, the more we realize actually our tool plugs and plays with all types of creators. Even if you're, starting out your path part time, all the way up to Mr. Beast, and you have 7 employees and a whole team and assistants. Our product can still be very plug and play for them as well.
Yeah.
So we realize we can kind of capture anyone who has a creator market.
Yeah.
Another really interesting thing that happened when we launched at YC was we were going after this like creator, 12 million. That was the number we had in mind. Once we launched, we were actually getting a lot of inbound interest from people who were just creatives. So think of videographers, photographers, people who have Etsy shops. they also all have very complicated tax scenarios. And for them, there's no centralized system for them to run their business, right? They can do QuickBooks, but it's
Right.
really just for invoicing. They could try something like HubSpot, but all the terminology is set for sales teams and it's made for sales teams. Salesforce is too expensive for them. And then there's a couple like solopreneur tools, but for them, that's more around like trying to find clients, things like that. That's not what we're solving around. What we're solving around is how do we optimize your business? How do we
Yeah.
maximize your savings? How do we go about, saving you time, figuring out what was a project that was worth it for you or not worth it for you based on the amount of hours that you spent on it.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
that's really where we saw a huge opportunity. So we actually think there's a way bigger potential to even be selling overall to the entire creative market.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Um, so going back to that initial point where you decided, hey, we're going to go into business together. Did you know you were going to go the Y Combinator route? How did that come to be? And can you just tell us a little bit about that journey and what that looks like?
Yeah, for sure. I told you I worked at Meta. After Meta, I was at a company called Daredrop, which was a great experience for me. They were having some issues raising, so had to move on to the next team, which I was over at HubSpot, selling with them. When I was at HubSpot, I kind of came to this moment of like, I was 25, 26 at that point, and I was like, I need to start doing other things. This is the age where, my dad already had his business successful at that age, and I felt like I was just falling behind in terms of where I wanted to be.
Hmm.
So heads down, made a lot of sales, enough to kind of survive off a year, and just quit and said I'm going to go full time this entrepreneurship. So this was like May of last year that happened. So I quit and started working on some ideas, really just like researching ideas. And that's kind of when I realized like this is the moment where we could be building something. So I called Jack, and Jack and I talk all the time. I called Jack and told him, hey, no pressure. This is what's happening. I'm full time. Would really love for you to build something with me. And at that point he was just got into the AI team at Bubble, was leading it. So it was really tough for him to leave at that point. So we said, let's explore ideas together. Jack's going to be part time on this. I'm going to be full time on this,
Yeah.
figuring out really where it works. When we got kind of to the September timeframe, that's when we realized, we have to be doing Y Combinator, kind of for two reasons. One, we had two friends who had done Y Combinator before, and really they had such a positive experience. In talking to them, they said, it was a no brainer to do it. The second thing was part of my tool belt collecting. I just started consuming a lot of Y Combinator content, like just naturally, organically, which is
Yeah.
like such an inbound funnel that then I realized like, okay, instead of me sitting here watching YouTube videos about Dalton, why don't I go and work with Dalton? Why don't I, be on his group? So that's kind of where I realized like, okay, I have to get into Y Combinator. So we applied with an ed tech idea back in the fall. Ended up getting an interview. Didn't get in. Ed tech's a bit tough, and we just didn't have a great founder fit. To be honest with you, just because neither of us are teachers. So we realized, all right, kind of let's go back to the drawing board. Took my experience, with having different softwares, basically selling that, and realizing that there's a lot of complexity when the systems don't communicate. And Jack's, ability to build AI systems, and we landed on this agent-to-agent orchestration. Applied again for the Spring Bash. So it took a couple months to just build. So we built an MVP out for that. Applied with an MVP, got the interview, and yeah, we're able to get in. So
Yeah.
that was definitely a changing journey because that allowed Jack to be able to go full time, without having to worry about like the financial consequences of not necessarily having something backed. Because Y Combinator gives you the upfront investment,
Mhm.
as well as just understanding that it's so high velocity that we need to be full time on it.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, what did some of those requirements look like for getting in? So you had that MVP. What other requirements were there?
Yeah, I would say there's not a ton of like requirements per se, but it's more so things that you can do to increase your odds, increase your chances. So the first time we applied, no demo, no MVP, and it just made it more difficult to like communicate what you're actually building, especially because we were doing something that was like pretty new frontier technology, and that's just something kind of difficult to communicate without any pictures or visuals there with it, especially in a 10-minute conversation.
Right.
So because of that, we knew, all right, we're going to increase our odds if we actually have an MVP, have a demo that we can show, and have some traction. So for us, we had our MVP, we had two LOI signed with customers. So we came in with a little bit of traction once we applied.
Yeah.
I think the other thing too that I would say, uh, not a requirement, but certainly helps just overall your odds of a startup, not necessarily even YC, but certainly YC, is knowing your founder really well.
Yeah.
So a lot of people will have just met their founder or looking for people. The fact that Jack and I have had 8 years of friendship before we were co-founders together and have always been tinkering on ideas together really made it like complementary.
Yeah.
Also, we have complementary skill sets, right? So I'm not dealing with any of the code, but Jack's not worrying about having to hop on customer calls and do the marketing. So because of that, we're both able to kind of trust each other and have each other's backs in the process. I
Yeah.
think that's super important. You see a lot of Y Combinator founders talk about how they had to learn sales, how they had to go through that process. And the reality fact is, a customer can tell if you don't want to be on a sales call. If you
Right.
don't like talking to people, you don't want to be on sales, they'll see right through that, right? Luckily for us, because we have this complementary feature set, we're able to kind of plug and play with each other and build alongside each other
Yeah.
in a very meaningful way, in a symbiotic way. So I think that that's something that also really helped with Y Combinator.
Yeah.
And then I think, AI has just made it even more meaningful where before I'm sure you needed a 3, 4 person engineering team if you're trying to build something really big, like an operating system, just
Yeah.
because it requires a lot of operating time or engineering time. Now, because we're able to just create so much faster, you're able to do with a really lean team, one person, right? We're good friends with the guys over at Cursor. They were able to scale huge with just a lean team. Same idea here at Beluga Labs, right? We're only trying to hire when we're to the point where we're like losing customers because we're not able to be on calls with them or we're not able to ship the feature that's critical for them.
Yeah.
Till that point, we're not just trying to hire to be like, oh, look, we just grew our team to 20. That means nothing, right? Like at the end of the day, I'd rather have the company have more runway. I'd rather us have more equity. Zapier is a great company, I think, that did this, where they were able to be incredibly lean. The founders retained a ton of equity, and they were able to grow huge. We're very much trying to be that same trajectory, right? Like I don't want to just have a headline, oh, Beluga Labs raised 80 million if I didn't need to. If it was critical for me to do it, for sure, we'll go ahead and try to do that path. But if
Sure.
it's not, I'd rather just raise our seed and just grow to a unicorn on our own. How cool is that story?
Yeah. Yeah. What does your current team look like?
Yeah, so it's just Jack and I.
Okay.
We're probably going
Love
to be
that.
hiring a founding engineer that has more of a design focus come this fall.
Mhm.
I think, with creators overall, they are very aesthetic people. I mean, just think about like the fact that they're editing and color changing their videos and images. Like for them, aesthetics is really important. And that's just something that Jack and I just don't have a super big strength in. So an engineer, but more so someone who's like very design focused. So more front end engineers, probably someone that we're going to be hiring for our founding engineer, and that'll be in the fall. Right now, we're both traveling in the summer, so don't want to onboard anyone remotely. We'll be doing it together in the fall when we're both back in San Francisco.
Yeah. Awesome. Very cool. What trends are you seeing in the marketplace right now as it relates to the creator economy? And what are some of the biggest things? How is AI shaping it? What are you
Yeah.
seeing?
Yeah, for sure. Lots of things. I think the creator economy is a super exciting one, and I think a lot of people got burnt, specifically VCs in 2020. I think when there was a shift towards, especially like TikTok booming, and you saw like the Charlie D'Amelios, everyone's like, "How can I get in there?" Right?
Mm,
Which was great, and I'm sure some people made a lot of money very quickly from that. The issue was a couple of things. One, people were building non-sticky solutions. They were building point solutions. Think of like a marketplace, right? Like how often do you go to a gas station when you need gas, right? You're never just hanging around the gas station. For
yeah.
us, we don't want to be a gas station. We want to be, your Google Chrome, somewhere where you go every single day. No matter what you're doing, you're still through us. That's the idea. I think the other thing too is that creators have changed the way that they're operating. So before, certainly pre-pandemic, the idea was let me grow my channel large enough to the point where Disney buys me, or I get a show with Netflix, and then I can just like sit back and like I've made it moment.
Mm,
Now you realize that the creators are the ones kind of wielding that power. Look at Mr. Beast, right? He is running the show. Amazon's backing him. It's not that Amazon bought Mr. Beast or bought a side of that, right? It's almost like that's his investor. And you're seeing more and more
yeah.
creators having businesses of their own, being investors, right? They are business people. They realize they have this platform. And for a lot of people, right, the more companies there are, distribution becomes so important. They have the largest distribution channel built in with a super trusting audience. This is a high engagement audience. It's not just the amount of followers, it's people that really trust them. So when they say, hey guys, buy this pen, people are going to buy the pen. So I think creators have kind of seen that. Because of that, there's been this shift. So I like to compare it to like athletes in the 70s and 80s. So you saw those athletes who were making a lot of money, across multiple leagues, and what they were doing there is just burning through their money. And then that's when you had all these stories of these athletes who are retired who don't have any money anymore and get into gambling issues, things like that. Modern athletes are not that way, right? Steph Curry's got a VC. Joe Montana's got a VC now with his son, right? Like there's this new shift of, okay, I made all this money. Let me capitalize on it. Creators also realize that same way. Much like an athlete, you can get hurt at any moment. That money stops. Your eyeballs can just be cut at any moment. You no longer getting views. Your money stops there. So for
Mhm.
them, they're figuring out ways. How can I, diversify my revenue, keep growing? I think that's a really big trend that creators are doing is the diversification. And then I think the final thing is that there's this really big shift overall in the market with where marketing dollars are going. So this
Yeah.
was the first year where the amount of ad revenue that was spent in creator economy surpassed the amount in professionally published content. So if you think about that, that means YouTube and TikTok, Instagram had more marketing dollars behind it than, Fox and CNN and some of these other ones who like do still have sponsors. People are no longer interested in advertising on TV. Why? Because it's not your right ICP. It's not a trusting ICP. And then furthermore, who is watching TV nowadays, right? Everyone's watching YouTube, everyone's watching short form, and it's only going to get even more in that direction. When you talk to a young kid, they don't want to grow up to be a salesperson or to work for a VC or to be an
Yeah.
engineer. They want to be a YouTuber. They want to be a TikToker, right? So there's going to be naturally more content creators. And to be a content creator, you need to know the space. So there's going to be people consuming more of that data, more of that input signal. So I think for us, we're also seeing that that's only going to grow and continue booming. And to answer your question on what AI is going to change, I think it's two main things.
Mhm.
I think one, the quiet part said out loud, AI will replace a lot of, white collar jobs, unfortunately.
Sure.
And what that's going to mean is people are going to be looking for various career paths, right? If we're able to free up people's time, they're going to naturally gravitate towards entertainment. And when they do that, they're going to realize, well, I could become a content creator. I have an interesting angle to talk about, or my friends find me really funny, or I do really crazy stunts, or I, do extreme sports, whatever it may be. We saw this during the pandemic when people lost their jobs and were dropping out of college. Content creation grew exponentially during that time. All of our creators that we work with all started streaming in 2020, right? So we think that this next wave of major layoffs is going to create a whole new wave of creators, right?
Yeah.
So that's a really big bet we're taking. The other thing is, whether the creator economy embraces it fully or not, but AI content is going to really increase the velocity at which content's able to be produced.
Right.
So a lot of things, whether it's like B-roll that you may have in your videos that don't really matter, or just editing tools, but overall you're going to be able to make your videos way quicker than ever before, as well as this rise of AI creators. There will be people who their entire account will be AI generated content, right? I'm sure you've seen the Bigfoot vlogs on Instagram. It's only going to get
Yeah.
this way to music, movies, short videos. And still behind every single one of those is a real creator, right? It's a real human who's prompting and creating this, right? It's just a different medium, it's a different vehicle. So for
Yeah.
us, we're really excited about that because we're able to support those types of creators as well who will be driving in brand deals and everything. So we think there's going to be this whole new type of content creator that will be there. It's just a matter of, how fast people want to embrace that or not. But I know
Yeah.
there are some social media apps that are, you know, coming out that are all based around AI content creators. So, it's only a matter of time before that's really prominent in the field.
Yeah. I'm curious, is there a breakdown around we'll just call it like maybe content sectors, if you will?
Yeah.
What creators are making, whether and maybe what's being most viewed, whether that's fitness, health, home building, DIY, stunts, sports, et
Yep.
cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Is there a breakdown for that? And like where are you seeing kind of the most watched, the most consumed content?
Yeah. I would say there's a pretty big, so I think it's two things. One, there's a pretty big divorce between follower count and like the success a creator may have, right? So even
Okay.
though
What do you mean by that?
so if you're scrolling through YouTube, you could see someone who has 100,000 subscribers, and then you see another
Okay.
person who has 40, and you may think of the 100,000 subscriber as, okay, that person's earning more money than this $40,000 subscriber.
Okay.
But the reality fact is, it matters on two things. One, the type of content that they're creating, and two, how good they are as a salesperson. So type of content really matters on the payout, both on the platform as well as the brand deals.
Okay.
Gaming overall has been just so many eyeballs on it that because of that, there's so many more creators in gaming. So it actually pays out the least on YouTube. If you're a gaming creator, you're going to be earning the least on just the overall ad revenue. What's paying the highest are things like fintech, educational, channels that overall take just more research and are more unique, are more niched, right? Are like, I'm not just going to start creating, random history videos if I don't like history, right? Like I have to enjoy this, right? Whereas gaming, it's such a wide range. So with that, we have creators who, have these different niches, and then the salesperson side of things. Some creators, and you see the brand deals when it's disgenuine, right? I remember I was living in Austin, and Formula One has a race down in Austin, and there was a lot of these creators who had never heard of Formula One and were calling the Grand Prix, right? The Austin Grand Prix. When I saw it, I was like, man, I don't even know if I want to go to this race anymore, right? So they weren't getting creators who were really doing that. I'm sure those
Yeah,
creators got that brand deal, they got that money. Never again did Formula One approach those creators, right?
of
Because it did
course.
not drive any sales for them.
Yeah,
So if
yeah,
you're a really good salesperson, you talk about it really naturally, like, hey, I would be a great spokesperson for, let's say, Cuts, right? The clothing brand. I
yeah,
use Cuts in my real life. If Cuts were like, I want to sponsor you, Fernando Young, it would be fantastic because for me, it's pitching a product I already like, right?
right.
And we've seen creators doing that more and more, specifically around some of these like brands like Lego, for example, right? Creators who already love the brand, very easy for them to sell, and their audience is already watching them for that brand. Right. So we see this in gaming as well, right? Like if you are a simulator game creator, you're going to be able to sell simulator games way easier than you would Call of Duty, for example.
Sure.
So with those two factors involved, we're seeing creators who, on the $30,000 or 30,000 subscriber mark are making way more than the creators who have 100,000 subscribers because they're doing more niche content, fintech. They're able to sell way higher because they're natural salespeople
Yeah.
rather than just sitting here painfully reading an ad script.
Do you see which way do you see the sales cycle going? Are creators reaching out to people saying, "Hey, I want to sell your product," vice versa, 50-50? How is that connection usually, or what's the typical way that happens?
Yeah, I would say it's a pendulum. In the beginning of a creator journey, it's all outbound.
Yeah.
They're going to reach out to brands. Hey, I use your brand, or I have 100,000 followers. Like, would love to do content together. Once you kind of reach a threshold of virality, it all comes inbound to you.
Yeah.
Either all comes inbound, or you work through an agency. And a lot of the agency's entire jobs are they sit there and they cold email brands. And they say,
Yeah.
hey, Coca-Cola, we have these 10 creators who are a good fit for you. Here are their following counts. Here are the other work they've done with other brands, the lift they were able to drive. So, they kind of shift to this moment where they get to be more picky with the brands that they work with. But, I will say, even talking to some of these larger creators, there are still some brands that they're really fascinated about and like would love to work with. But it's almost like this chicken and egg scenario where they don't want to be reaching out and seem a little
Yeah.
bit weak, right? Same thing about startups. I don't want to reach out to a VC and be like, I really need your money. It seems weak. But there are some VCs that I'm like, wow, I'd love to work with them. We fit in their portfolio, but it's like I'm not going to reach out to them. They may not know I exist. So there's like this weird enigma that happens. Same thing with content creators. There are some brands that they would naturally want to work with and would be a great fit for this brand, would really sell their product well. But it's like this unknown, right? And that's something
Yeah.
that we hope to solve as well. And later on, some of our Mars missions, we hope to be solving for that as well, is having really good matches between creators and brands, much
Mhm.
more than just the public analytics of like, follower count and this is going to do something else, but more qualitative on the type of content they make, the type of people they are, and just expressing overall I'd love to work with Coca-Cola. Just as
Yeah.
simple as that can go a long way.
Yeah. I want you to put a pin in this. I was just thinking to myself, I did a podcast with the founder of a company called XP Flow in Three Tree. They have their product is like an affiliate marketing product, and so it's for people that are whatever build it making products, and they want creators to go out and help sell their product. But I do think there might be some type of synergy with you and them, and working together with your guys' networks. It just seems like there could be something really good there. So the
For sure.
founder is an awesome dude, and I'm sure you'd really like him. So
Yeah.
um all right, cool. Do you have a favorite creator?
Yeah. One creator that I've watched for a really long time is Devil Dog Gamer. He is like ex-Marine who does like heavy simulation games. But the cool thing is he like brings over Marine tactics into his games. So he'll like literally speak the lingo and he plays with a bunch of other vets. So they'll like play Arma or a game that's like a more military simulation in a very tactical way, which is
Yeah.
super interesting for me as someone who like didn't join the Marines, like didn't do any of that, but like enjoys that content. So I think that's a really big one. And just love how technical he gets with some things. Like he'll teach himself, the manual for like an F-35 jet just to be able to like play in a game, right? So he'll go through this
That's
like
crazy.
week-long training
Wow.
program just to be able to play it on a computer game. So lots of dedication. And I actually wrote, so I've been interested in content creators for a long time. I wrote an article about him in high school for my high school
Okay.
newspaper. This is like 2015, really where like YouTube was like reaching its true peak and
Mhm.
creators were making a lot of money. And I was like, wait, like these people have to be a lot of money. So I reached out to him. He had like maybe 100,000 followers at that point, like not a crazy amount of subscribers. And I reached out and told him, hey, I'm writing a paper. He got on a call with me. Really awesome. I was able to
Dude,
write this
that's
for him
awesome.
and now he's got 1 million subscribers. I've met him a couple times in person, and it's just cool to see. That's like the first creator I would say who I was like part of their journey when they were kind of just starting out to the point where now they're, he made a video of Mr. Beast just recently, for example. So like,
Mhm.
gotten to a certain level of clout. Just really awesome to see. He's been the same person all throughout, and like.
Yeah.
For me, it's very about shape my personality, and that's something we hope to be able to empower. Is like this next generation of creators we know how powerful they are. Like there are going to be young kids who are growing up who their entire personalities, what they like, the brands they choose to purchase, where they choose to live, the jobs are all going to be influenced by content creators. So it's really important that content creators are able to retain their platform and speak freely on these issues and know that, financially they're going to be able
Yeah.
to keep doing this and not just a hobby.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have any advice you'd give young, early career individuals that are looking at entrepreneurship, looking at career, and what path they want to take?
Yeah. Um, I think it's everyone's got a different journey. I think that social media is made you think that like, especially like with the Cluely guys and stuff like that, like, oh my God, I gotta like rush and do it right out of college. Like I want to drop out. And like I was very much also bought into that. Man, I'm so thankful that I went through 3 different jobs at different orgs and had that experience before I did entrepreneurship. I've had no regrets about my career. And I think that's a totally valid way. If you don't feel prepared enough or you don't have this idea or there's no like technical breakthrough that you're like now is the moment, take your time, continue learning.
Mhm.
And I think that's the biggest piece of advice I get is learn through everything, right? Like everyone has something to teach you, whether it's a sales skill, a marketing skill, engineering. I think everyone should be learning everything, right? And like my co-founder, for example, who's an engineer, loves to learn about the things I'm doing, right? He'll hop on some VC calls and just be a fly on the wall to understand, things we're going through. He'll hop on client calls. Like for him, he very much wants to learn. And same with me. Like he'll walk me through some of the code, even though some of it seems a little like jargon to me. It's really important for me to understand the work he's going through. So I think it's, there's always something to learn, even if it's someone who seems like it's way out of your lane. It could be very complementary to your work later on the line. You may not know it at the moment. I think that's really other important. And then I think just be true to yourself. At the end of the day, like you have to with entrepreneurship you're making it bet on yourself, so you have to have that confidence that I will be the one to figure it out, I'll be the one to make it. The founder of Perplexity had a great quote at YC. Why not me, right? So the question was Google Chrome, Google's got this huge engine, how could you compete with a search engine? And he said unless you could have a mathematical formula that disproves and says that I cannot work on this, that Google 100% has solved this problem, then why can't it be me? Why can't I compete? And that's very much something me and my co-founder say all the time is why can't this be us? Yes, people
Yeah.
have had failures in the creator economy. Why can't we be the unicorn in it, right? Like we can do it. There's no formula you can show me that says no, Fernando, you should stop now. And if there is, I'll stop. I'll switch over to another career. You got me. But until that moment happens, I'm continuing to take a bet on myself. So I think that's the most important thing is bet on yourself.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. Um, so you've released, your first few modules. Do you have in your roadmap, are you able to talk about what's next and things to come for
Yeah,
Beluga?
Yeah, happy to talk about what's next. So we right now have our bookkeeping, tax planning, and quarterly tax payments portal. So you're able to work with us and get all your taxes paid for. It's fully automated, so it's low touch to begin with. And the idea is that the more you use it, it's going to be no touch. So truly taxes on autopilot, knowing that you're deducting the most you can, and just really being able
That seems
to
like a dream.
yeah, right. Uh,
Seriously.
that's the goal.
That's awesome.
And not have to have it be a headache every time or just miss out on quarterly payments and have those fees. Next one that we're launching is around brand deals. So being able to track the brand deals you're working on, see which are ones that you're getting paid the most on based on your time and hours that you spent on that, and what your true dynamic rate should be. So if I worked with Coca-Cola last year and they gave me $5,000, and then I want to work with them again and they're offering me $2,500, understanding, okay, well, why did that rate change? Was it because it's half the time project? Being able to come back with it with knowledge. That's going to be coming out later this summer. And then overall roadmap, I'm going to be starting building some modules specifically for brand agencies. So if you're a business manager, you're an agency that represents creators, being able to see how your creators are doing, financially, revenue wise, and how much your deals are actually impacting them positively,
Yeah.
is a big thing that we're building. So I would say that, kind of those two things will take us through the end of 2025. And then 2026 is really building some of these larger modules. Think of things like overall, reporting on your channel growth, being able to take direct integrations from the platforms to be able to understand how that's growing your channel with your revenue. And then just being able to have more of a team environment overall. So adding your business manager, your taxes, things like that.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. Well, where can people find you? How do they get in touch? How do they sign up? What does that look like?
Yeah, you can go to our website, belugalabs.ai. There's a button right there, and we'll get you onboarded. Right now, we're having founder calls with every single one of our customers, not because we need to, but because we want to help you. We want
Yeah.
you to have my cell phone number, my Discord. Call me. We can play games together. Like, that's a very big important thing for us as we're starting out.
Yeah.
Other way you can find me is Act Forever Young on Twitter, or Fernando Young on LinkedIn. Pretty active on all those sites. Definitely reach out if you're, a founder, if you're a creator, if you're someone who's just going through college. I wish that I had someone who I could bounce ideas off, and I would love to do that for other people as well. So happy to just, be a help where I can.
Yeah, incredible. Well, I wish you the best of luck. I'm really excited to follow you and follow your journey and watch this become a unicorn. It seems like it's a no-brainer. So, very cool. Well, Fernando, we'll be in touch. We'll talk soon. Everyone, signing off. Thanks.
Thanks, Brian.